The day dawned grey and heavy, a thick blanket of clouds smothering the airport. Rain lashed down in sheets, mirroring the unease that flickered in the hearts of some passengers. Despite the weather, there was an air of anticipation, the silent hum of journeys about to begin. Families huddled together, their faces etched with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Businessmen clutched briefcases, their minds already on meetings in far-off cities. The crew, a seasoned group of professionals, went through their pre-flight routines with practiced efficiency. Their faces were drawn, but it was the fatigue of long hours, not fear. They were veterans of the sky, accustomed to its caprices. Little did they know this flight would be unlike any other. The storm brewing outside was a grim harbinger of the disaster that awaited them. The airliner, a symbol of human ingenuity and ambition, taxied slowly on the tarmac. Its wings, designed to conquer gravity, seemed to droop under the weight of the downpour. Inside, passengers settled into their seats, their faces illuminated by the dim cabin lights. The usual pre-flight announcements crackled through the speakers, a litany of safety instructions that most ignored. With a surge of power, the plane accelerated down the runway, the roar of the engines momentarily drowning out the drumming of the rain. It lifted into the air, piercing the thick clouds and leaving the storm behind. For a brief moment, a collective sigh of relief swept through the cabin. They were airborne, soaring above the turbulence, their fears seemingly as insignificant as the world shrinking below. But it was a fleeting hope, a cruel illusion. As the plane climbed higher, seeking calmer air amidst the storm clouds, the first sign of trouble emerged. A slight tremor ran through the aircraft, a barely perceptible vibration that was easily dismissed as turbulence. But in the cockpit, the seasoned pilots exchanged worried glances. The instruments, their digital faces usually glowing with reassuring normalcy, began to flicker. Warning lights, harbingers of potential disaster, blinked ominously. The initial tremors escalated into violent shaking, the once comforting hum of the engines turning into a strained whine. Oxygen masks dropped from overhead compartments, their sudden appearance transforming the initial unease into palpable fear. Passengers gripped their armrests, their faces pale, their eyes wide with terror. The once mundane journey had taken an ominous turn, the silent threat of disaster looming large. "Mayday, mayday!" The pilot's voice, usually calm and reassuring, was laced with urgency, the international distress call piercing the terrified silence of the cabin. He fought to control the plummeting aircraft, his voice tight as he reported their situation to air traffic control. Every word was a desperate plea for help, a fight against the inevitable. Panic seized the passengers. Screams filled the cabin, a chaotic symphony of fear and despair. The cabin crew, their faces betraying their own terror, struggled to maintain order, their voices drowned out by the escalating chaos. Mothers clutched their children, their faces etched with primal fear. Husbands and wives exchanged desperate glances, their unspoken words of love and farewell hanging heavy in the air. Section 5. The hushed impact of tragedy. Then, with a deafening roar and a blinding flash, it happened. The plane, a mangled wreck of metal and dreams, slammed into the earth with unimaginable force. The impact, a monstrous collision of metal and earth, echoed across the desolate landscape. A massive fireball erupted, consuming the wreckage in a horrifying pyre. The sound of the crash, a terrible symphony of destruction, was heard for miles. It was a sound that spoke of immense force, of lives extinguished in an instant. The once familiar silhouette of the aircraft, a symbol of human aspiration, was reduced to a smouldering crater. The violence of the impact left nothing but devastation in its wake, a stark reminder of the fragility of life. The first responders arrived at a scene of unimaginable devastation. The crash site was a chaotic jumble of twisted metal, shattered glass, and personal belongings. Luggage, ripped open on impact, spilled its contents, offering mute testament to the lives cut short. A child's toy, a woman's scarf, a man's worn book, everyday objects imbued with tragic significance. The air was thick with the smell of jet fuel and smoke, a grim reminder of the inferno that had consumed the aircraft. Emergency workers, their faces etched with grim determination, moved through the wreckage. Their grim task made even more difficult by the sheer scale of the tragedy. Each piece of debris, each recovered item, whispered a story, a life abruptly ended. As the initial shock subsided, the investigation began. Experts from around the world converged on the crash site, their faces grim, their eyes determined. They meticulously combed through the wreckage, searching for clues, for answers to the question that haunted everyone: why? The black boxes, those silent witnesses to the tragedy, were recovered, their data recorders holding the key to unraveling the mystery. Every piece of evidence, every fragment of data was scrutinized. Was it a catastrophic mechanical failure, a fatal error in judgment, or an unforeseen act of nature? The investigation was painstakingly slow, a complex puzzle with no easy answers. Families of the victims waited anxiously for news, clinging to the hope of understanding, of finding some sense of closure amidst the overwhelming grief. The crash sent shockwaves across the globe. News channels ran non-stop coverage. The images of the wreckage seared into the collective consciousness. The world mourned the loss of life, the collective grief transcending borders and languages. Candlelight vigils were held, prayers were offered, and tributes poured in from every corner of the world. Yet amidst the grief and mourning, there was a burning need for answers. Why did this happen? Who was to blame? The investigation continued, fueled by the need to prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again. The pursuit of truth became paramount, a way to honor the memory of those lost and to ensure the safety of future flights. The deadliest crash in aviation history served as a stark reminder of the inherent risks of air travel. It highlighted the importance of rigorous safety protocols, of continuous improvement in aircraft design and maintenance, and of the constant need for vigilance. The tragedy forced the aviation industry to confront its vulnerabilities, to learn from the mistakes that led to the disaster. Though the scars of the tragedy remained, so did the spirit of resilience. The quest for safer skies continued, driven by the memory of those lost and the unwavering commitment to preventing future tragedies. The lessons learned from the crash were etched in the skies, a solemn reminder that every flight, every journey is a testament to human courage, ingenuity, and the enduring hope for a safer tomorrow.